The history of England is one filled with invasions, cultural revolutions, and transformative change. After the Ice Age ended and sea levels rose, the low-lying land of modern-day England was submerged, creating an island. Modern humans first inhabited this land during the Upper Paleolithic period, but it was later named after the Angles, a Germanic tribe from the Anglia Peninsula who settled in the 5th and 6th centuries. Following the Ice Age came the Iron Age, during which hunting remained an important source of food. However, advancements in farming technology allowed nomadic peoples to establish permanent settlements, and early farmsteads began appearing across the landscape. The Bronze Age, spanning from 2500 to around 800 BCE, was named for the use of bronze and copper to craft tools, weapons, and decorative items. This era also saw the construction of large stone meeting places, such as Avebury and Stonehenge, by the people known as the Celts. England caught the attention of Roman Emperor Julius Caesar, who attempted to invade in 55 BC but failed to conquer the land. However, in 43 CE, Emperor Claudius successfully led an invasion, and the Romans ruled England as a colony for nearly 400 years. They introduced their civilization, building roads, cities, baths, aqueducts, and theaters. Traders and craftsmen arrived, and the Anglo-Roman population grew. In 120 CE, Emperor Hadrian commissioned the construction of a massive wall to mark the northern boundary of the Roman Empire and deter attacks from the Picts and Scots. As the Roman Empire began to weaken, Roman troops were withdrawn from England to defend the empire's heart. When Rome fell to a Visigothic army in 410 CE, England was left to fend for itself. Around 450 CE, a local ruler named Vortigern invited Danish mercenaries to defend his region of England from the Picts and Scots, but the Danes turned on their hosts, founding the First Saxon Kingdom. Other mercenary groups followed, leading to the establishment of various rival Saxon and Anglo kingdoms that were frequently at war. These conflicts became known as the Dark Ages, a period during which Anglo-Saxon art and literature, greatly influenced by Christianity, thrived. This era ended violently with the arrival of Viking armies, whose continuous invasions led to the establishment of Viking settlements and domination over Saxon kingdoms. After many battles, the separate kingdoms were eventually unified under the reign of Athelstan, creating a united England. In 1066, following the death of Edward the Confessor, 3 claimants vied for the English crown: Harold Godwin's son, Harold Hardrada of Norway, and William of Normandy. Harold defeated the Vikings at Stamford Bridge, but was later defeated himself by William at the Battle of Hastings. William crowned himself King of England on Christmas Day in 1066. To solidify his control over the defeated Saxons, William awarded large tracts of land to his Norman lords and built numerous stone castles. To raise funds, he ordered a comprehensive survey of all English lands, which became known as the Domesday Book. William's reign was followed by that of King John, who believed himself to be above the law and seized what he wanted by force. However, the barons rebelled against his demands, presenting him with the Magna Carta in 1215, a historic document establishing the principle of constitutional limits on royal power. The year after the signing of the Magna Carta, King John died, and his 9-year-old son Henry inherited the crown. Over the next century, England was devastated by the Black Death, a plague that wiped out a third of the population. In 1485, when Henry Tudor defeated Richard III at the Battle of Bosworth Field, the Tudor dynasty began. Henry VII ruled wisely, but after the death of his eldest son Arthur, he arranged for his younger son, Henry VIII, to marry Arthur's widow, Catherine of Aragon. After 20 years of marriage and the birth of only one surviving child, a daughter named Mary, Henry VIII sought to divorce Catherine for failing to provide a male heir. To achieve this, he broke from the Catholic Church, declaring himself head of the Church of England in 1533. He then married Anne Boleyn, who gave birth to another daughter, Elizabeth. 3 years later, and was executed on charges of treason. Henry VIII would go on to marry 6 times, fathering a son named Edward by his third wife, Jane Seymour. Jane died shortly after Edward's birth, and in 1547, Henry himself passed away, leaving the 9-year-old Edward to inherit the throne. When Edward died at the age of 15, the crown briefly passed to his cousin Jane Grey, who was overthrown after just 9 days by Mary I, Edward's elder half-sister, who sought to restore Catholicism to England. She died childless in 1558, leaving the throne to Elizabeth I. Under Elizabeth's reign, England flourished during what became known as the Golden Age. The Navy, established by Henry VIII, became England's primary defense and a key tool for exploration, colonization, and trade. Elizabeth never married, and upon her death in 1603, she named James VI of Scotland as her successor, making him James I of England. His reign was marked by financial troubles and religious tensions, most famously resulting in the Gunpowder Plot, an attempt to assassinate him. His son, Charles I, succeeded him in 1625, but his belief in the divine right of kings led to a bitter conflict with Parliament. The result was the English Civil War, culminating in Charles I's execution for treason in 1649. The monarchy was abolished, and England became a republic under the leadership of Oliver Cromwell. After Cromwell's death in 1658, his son Richard briefly took over, but his lack of leadership skills led to the restoration of the monarchy in 1660, with Charles II ascending the throne. In 1685, when the Catholic James II took the throne, a group of politicians invited William of Orange, a Protestant married to James' daughter Mary, to invade England. James II fled to France, and William and Mary were crowned as joint monarchs in 1689. After Mary's death in 1694, William continued to rule until his death in 1702, when the crown passed to Mary's sister, Anne. Upon Anne's death in 1714, the Georgian period began, named after the 4 King George who reigned during this era. This period witnessed the start of the Industrial Revolution, which turned England into one of the wealthiest nations in the world. However, it was also during this time that England lost control of its American colonies. In 1837, Queen Victoria ascended the throne at the age of 18, ruling over a vast empire that included Britain, Canada, Australia, India, New Zealand, and parts of Africa. Her reign, which lasted until 1901, saw unprecedented inventions, industrialization, and artistic achievements. The early 20th century began with the death of Victoria and the succession of her son, Edward VII, whose brief reign ended in 1910. Edward's son, George V, became king just as Europe was drawn into World War I. The conflict, which lasted from 1914 to 1918, was one of the deadliest in human history. After the war, England faced economic turmoil, labor strikes, and a financial crash that led to the Great Depression. In 1936, King George V died, and his eldest son, Edward VIII, succeeded him. However, Edward's relationship with a divorced American woman, Wallis Simpson, led to his abdication later that year, passing the crown to his brother, George VI. England faced another global conflict in 1939 with the outbreak of World War II, standing firm against Nazi Germany. After the war ended in 1945, England began the long process of reconstruction. The 1960s marked a period of cultural and social revolution in England, with the rise of the Beatles, swinging London, and technological advancements such as supersonic flight and the moon landing. As the 20th century came to an end, England's global power waned, but its cultural influence remained strong. Where England's future in the 21st century lies is yet to be seen. If you want us to explain more about any historical period, please comment below, and we will make a video to go into detail about that specific period.